Just took the four-wheel drive out of the shed. We've already ran this thing a little bit this spring, knocking down some tile lines, but I never actually greased the digger or checked the tires on the tractor. So today we're pulling it up to the shop. We're gonna get everything ready on the tractor as well as the field cultivator to go for this spring. There it is. I looked in the operator's manual to see what tire pressure we need in each of these tires for our field cultivator, and it says the front two duals on each side need to be at 9 psi and the rear duals at 7 psi. So we're gonna adjust the pressure in the tires accordingly. Now normally I would just pull the tractor and the digger into the shop, that way I have all the tools right where I need them. But let me show you guys why I'm not doing that today. So yesterday and in my previous video, you guys know we got our planter ready, but yesterday was actually the first day we took the planter out of the shed and tried to unfold everything, run the hydraulics, try to just make sure everything was gonna work before we got to the field. And unfortunately, we had a problem. The problem with the planter lies right here in this hydraulic block. So as you know, hydraulic flow comes from the tractor hydraulic pump, back through some hoses, back here to this hydraulic block. And when we started running hydraulic flow through one of these hoses back to this block, one of these actuators here had an O-ring that broke, so to keep a nice good seal here to this block. And somehow that led to some of these bolts that held another one of these actuators on here breaking. So now we have some partial threads of bolts down here in this hydraulic block that we need out. And the broken pieces of the bolts that are still in that hydraulic block aren't causing any issues. The only issue we're having is that we're not able to put another valve back on there because those bolts are holding the threads. So we need the broken pieces of the bolts out of that hydraulic block so we can put this valve back on there. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but the broken pieces are about 1/8 of an inch in diameter, so it's really hard to finagle that broken piece of that bolt out of there. And without getting that broken piece of that bolt out of that hydraulic block, we're nothing short of spending $10,000 to $15,000 on a new hydraulic block because we can't get metal filings in any portion of what controls all the hydraulics for the planter. So unfortunately that happened to the planter, but we're fortunate that it happened pre-season. But right now, if we needed to go out to the field today and start planting, we actually aren't able to, at least not with our planter right there. But I ordered some reverse threaded drill bits that we're gonna try to tap down in there, and that'll hopefully take the drill bit out. Otherwise, I've also thought about trying to do some Healy coils on that. So tapping some new holes, putting some new bolts, but we just have to make sure we don't get any metal filings inside that hydraulic block. So it's unfortunate we can't get the digger inside here, but it's ultra unfortunate because right now we really don't have a planter to run this spring. Just because the planter in the shop's laid up doesn't mean we can't stop, keep getting things ready. So I grabbed the grease gun now. We'll hit some grease circs on the tractor as well as some of the main ones here on the digger before we fold out the wings. That way we don't have to keep crawling around on the rocks. Like to give everything 8 shots of grease to start the season, and then it's at every 50-hour interval that you got to give it another. I usually do 8 shots, so I'll give it 8 shots here. With the digger folded up like this, it's a lot easier to check the tire pressure and grease these middle wheels rather than having to crawl through everything when having it unfolded. So I already checked the tire pressure on these bottom main 4 drive wheels the other day. Now I'm just scanning across, checking the sweeps, making sure they're all looking sharp to start the season before we go ahead and fold everything down. Just hold down our number 2 lever and start folding down the next section of the wings to be greased and tire pressure checked over. Now because I need to crawl under the digger to hit some grease zerks as well as check some tires underneath there, one thing I always do is turn the hydraulics off. That way, just on the off chance there is a slow hydraulic leak, the digger won't all of a sudden come crashing down. So I'm just locking the hydraulics, locking anything from moving, just to be safe and precautionary when I go under it to check some things. I just finished checking everything over here on our 52.5 foot field cultivator that we'll be running this spring. So this, as well as our 9R 620 horsepower tractor, will go over all of our corn and soybean acres, work about 2 to 4 inches deep, depending on what kind of subsoil moisture we have. There are two things I really like about our field cultivator right here compared to some other ones. So as you can tell, we have a rolling basket on the back for our finishing tool. And what I really like is these are hydraulically controlled from inside the cab. So say you're in some of those wetter soils where you don't want to mat the soil down, you're actually able to raise them up or put on less pressure. The only downfall or watch out on these is when you find some strains of barbed wire out in the field, it can get wrapped up around here in a hurry. And the second thing I like about this field cultivator, which will come to no surprise to some of you guys, is some of the technology that's installed on it. And that technology being true set tillage. So in previous years before this technology, to raise and lower the implement by small marginal amounts, you'd take this large wrench, rotate this large shaft, and that would be, I believe it's 4 turns equals 1 inch to go deeper, or if you want to go shallower, they still have this option if you want to disconnect the true set on it. But as you guys already know, I'm all in on the technology, so I use the true set technology, which allows us to control the depth of the digger from inside the cab up to 1/10 of an inch through the display here. So now I need to rerun some calibrations, make sure we have the depth set right for our zero on a perfectly flat spot of the yard. So when we do get to the field, our adjustments that we make are correct. It took me a little bit, but I finally found it inside here to do the calibration. So it's gonna raise and lower the digger, basically cycle those big cylinders back here so it knows where all the way open is, where all the way closed is. That way we'll have a good representation inside here for our depth. The next thing we need to do inside the cab, and hopefully this works because we're still close to the shop, is every year John Deere comes out with some new updates inside the controller here of the display, and they always recommend that you're on the newest display update before going into the season. So I'm going to try to pull the Wi-Fi from the shop, make the updates we need inside here, and see if there's any for the globe that we're going to be running on this tractor. I got the update done inside the display. I was able to rob Wi-Fi from the shop and get that done. Now I'm driving the tractor up to a flat part of some concrete we have so we can do an updated TCM calibration on the globe. So the point of this TCM calibration is that way the globe right there on the cab of the tractor, it has the same point of reference when we have the tractor facing this way as well as then when we turn it around. So to do our TCM calibration, we take a block and set it as a marked reference to the fixed axle, so the back axle of this tractor. Just like that. Now I need to turn the tractor around and hopefully line up the other side axle pretty close to that block for our GPS accuracy. For our first stop, not too bad. I just got to pull ahead another 6 inches and we'll be lined up. And we will call that good enough. that's all for today that I'm gonna get ready on the equipment side of things. Now there's a project I've been working on over in our heated shop that I've actually wanted to do for quite a few years. So I'll bring you guys over there, show you what I've been up to. Here's what I bought. A bunch of different sizes of wrenches and some other tools that I needed inside the shop. The reason I went ahead and bought a bunch more wrenches is because this is what my wrench placard looks like right now. And when we built the shop in 2009, this placard was completely filled out with all of our ratchet wrenches, as well as having a full placard of open face wrenches. So most of the tools that we use, we keep here in our heated shop. So as you might expect, you come in here out of one of the cold storage buildings needing a wrench, you go work on it in one of the other sheds, you maybe forget it over there or don't put it back where it belongs, and eventually that's led us to losing a bunch of wrenches. So I went ahead, ordered off Amazon and eBay the wrenches we need to complete our wrench sets here in the shop. And then I went online and tried to find something that I would be able to mark each wrench set that we have, so that way you know that this 3/4 inch wrench belongs to this set, and I'll have a marking or a different color for each different building. So I was gonna use some of this plastic dip stuff. I tried it on a couple of pliers, couldn't really get it to work on the wrenches, so I'm just gonna go with some spray paint down the streak of the middle of these wrenches. I was intending on using some paint and making all the lines perfectly straight in the middle of each of the wrenches so it looked good inside that placard. But I realized how long it would take and how inaccurate I would be in trying to measure where the center of each of the wrenches are. And since I'm not even sure if that spray paint's gonna stay on or if it might eventually wear off, I figured for now I'm just gonna put a quick stripe or a quick hit on it with the spray paint just to see how it ends up. And with that, that's gonna be it for today's video of Hitech Farmer. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.